All right, this is the first test run ever. This is the 12th day here of the 12th month. My name's Jay. This is Chaz, and we're doing a test run here to see what we want to do ultimately. He was just about to get into what he was going to say about this time in his life. Go ahead, Chaz.
Well, what I was going to say is, everything ends up being spiritual when you get to the age bracket that I am.
We're just doing a test recording anyway, so I'll stop for a second. This is why we'll have headphones eventually, because this fucking dog, I love her to death, but she'll whine about every fucking thing that happens when you're video recording. It gets really annoying. She's
Well,
whining.
I didn't hear her on my end, but I guess you can real
You
well.
couldn't hear her?
No, I didn't hear her.
Listen.
No, when I'm using the speaker off of this off my computer, so I'm not using the headset either.
Okay. Fair enough.
If I was, I could probably end up getting me a headset to plug in here.
Yeah, we will. We will eventually. But go ahead then. That's cool. I can hear it, and that's cool. If you can hear it, that's great. That means
as long as it doesn't annoy you too bad, I can live with it because I don't really hear it.
As long as you can't hear it, that's awesome. That's what I like to know. Go ahead and continue on. At this point in your life, you were saying?
Oh, we're actually recording?
I've been recording, yeah, for a few minutes here.
Okay. Well, I was saying was when you and I have had a lot of discussions over the years, and over lots of things, over politics and spiritual matters, earth changes, you name it. I mean, it's probably not many subjects that we haven't covered at one time or another. we got one from back when Trump was running for president, if you remember. That was kind of a test run too, I think. But that's the way it's going to end up being from now on. This time around, as they say, if there is a reincarnation process, which I don't know if there is, I don't feel like that I'm on a recycle on this time around. That this is my final Yahoo. This is my final time down here on planet Earth, or plane Earth, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Because it's debatable even now. And the thing that makes it so unique to me, Jason, is almost everything is debatable. I guess is the best way to put it. There's nothing chiseled in stone anymore. There was a time in my life where certain things were givens. I guess just a better way of putting it. And somehow or another, a lot of the givens are going away.
Can I say something to that idea? I think you got to remember back when you go back to the point of life where you say there were givens, at that point in time, you weren't accessing information, really, right? So you had certain givens which were really based on assumptions. When you think about it,
we're based on what, sir?
Givens can be objective, but also they're based on some assumptive mindset, right? So you have givens because you're assuming something.
Yeah, maybe it's a core belief, but it's a given from the point of view that I was.
Yeah, it was a given from that perspective because you didn't have extra things to view, right? There weren't a lot of other perspectives to look at, so ultimately they were givens. Now they might be straight givens because there are givens in reality, right? We know something's going to fall directly down when you throw it outside. That's a given. You want to call it gravity, what you want to call it, doesn't make any difference. It is a given. If I throw something outside right now, it's going to hit the ground eventually.
Yeah, what goes up must come down. That's a given.
Those are givens. Anything that's built into your actual brain as a given to you and you haven't verified it, that's different.
Well, that's the whole thing. See, those kind of things, Jason, and we've all been guilty of them. The older we get, we kind of filter those out. But we have a lot of things that we take for granted as a given, or however you want to look at it. It's like when you make a comment on anything, you're immediately accessing your RAM up there in your old skull for what I call relatives. Because what we really do, in my way of looking at it, Jay, is we're just comparative thinkers in a way. The only way we're able to even process the thought, it seems like, is by comparing one thing to another thing that we already have experienced or somehow or another got downloaded into our fucking RAM up here.
Well, of course, that's exactly how.
We are a computer in a
that's-
sense. We're a lot smarter than any of these devices.
That's
Obviously.
that's the critical thinking process. I mean, that is what it is. I mean, basically, it goes down to.
But you have to understand, son, there are so many people that don't realize that critical thinking is even possible. And some people don't even know what critical thinking is. To them, critical thinking would be studying for a test or, so I can memorize some piece of data so I can regurgitate it on command.
Yes.
That's not critical thinking.
There is a methodology to thinking, right? I mean, there's no doubt about
it. And just random thoughts is not thinking.
Yeah, I always love that quote, the idea that, people have thoughts, but they don't really have a lot of thinking. So in order to actually, the actual thoughts don't equate to thinking. So you might have a million thoughts in your brain, but that input, processing, output, that's the critical thinking process. And that's stuff we've learned over time. I mean, whether it be through Richard Grove stuff I've looked at, Jan Irvin stuff, that Gino Denning, the whole trivium, quadrivium stuff that we looked into. And that's a key point to know. I mean, it's not the only way to gather information, and even that one guy who told me about the word information, inform, moving towards form, it doesn't become a form, right, until you process that and have an output. That's why it's called information. It's moving towards form. It isn't inform until
it's really just a thought until it's either put into action somehow or another, put in paper or somehow.
Well, but what do we say? Oh, I have all this information. Well, that just means you have the first step. You haven't done anything beyond that. If you just have information, the next step is to process all that information and take that into an output, which would become the rhetoric that we're having right now, the discussion we're having right now, right?
Yeah, if you don't have a way to, categorize the information that you encounter, no matter how you're getting it, through nature or through the internet or through just a regular conversation with somebody. It's like for every time you say something to me, I take it in and my brain processes it and I have a response from that understanding. And therein leads a big problem because some people don't have very much of an understanding of anything.
Well, here's the thing. This is why the whole point that you, from there to interject something, that's why they bring up within that trivium that idea of remove the contradictions, right? The idea of remove the contradictory thoughts, the fallacies of logic. That's where all that comes into play, because if you take something in, right, and then your reply is a total appeal to authority, which is someone says to you, well, even yesterday, for example, I said to a guy, I have no problem with oil-based energies. Oh, well, you definitely need to go to NASA's website, read all about the global warming they talk about. That was his response as he walked away, as if he almost felt like he was talking to an alien that didn't understand anything about global warming being an oil problem, which, again, was a total built-in assumption. He has no understanding of me. He immediately threw into his contradictory thought processing, appeal to authority, because immediately it was NASA, the authority, he believing that authority. He had contradictory thoughts. He didn't do the process. He basically, instead of removing his own internal contradictions, looking at things truly objectively, he immediately took in something that he had gotten at some point, some information that he didn't verify. He didn't go through the process of looking at all the variables, right? Like we've done through different methods. That's why we have so many different viewpoints, because we've gone through the process of variables here. We don't just take every built-in assumption that's been fed to us as a grain of fucking information. Sorry for the shooting.
Well, first of all, you have to categorize it. First of all, we personified to identify, so to speak. And if someone gives you some information, depending on how broad your understanding is, you will make a decision on, or either an assumption, or you will make some kind of decision on the information that was presented to you. The way I look at it.
That's what he did. That's what I'm trying to say. He immediately assumed when I said, I have no problem with oil-based energies. oh, well, you really need to go to NASA's website and look at the global warming stuff they have. I'm like,
Well, all he knew to do, son, from what you told me, I mean, I don't know the guy or anything, but what
I
that
don't know
sounds like
either.
to me is the only information he had any inkling of that even related to the topic that he mentioned is from there.
Well, no,
He has
because
a one source that he's found information at. He ran across a story from NASA
well,
or something like that.
partially, but it's also what we were discussing a second ago was the idea that you're saying that how do people, they built all these assumptions and well, yeah, that's where the contradictory thoughts have to be removed. So what he's not doing is he's not doing independent thinking. He had to interject something, the appeal to authority fallacy of, well, NASA, again, I must be on the same plane as him, according to him, because NASA's authority, right? They are authority, so he is basically
they are a source of information. They're not
sure.
to me, there
Well,
is no final word on anything.
no, but this is what I'm trying to say is I get that you're processing it differently.
Yeah, but this guy, obviously, that's what I said, Jason, before. He had this one thing. He had an article or something he read on NASA that someone told him to look up, for instance, or he somehow or another was urged to look this up on this NASA website.
Well, no, he believes all the other stuff he's been fed about oil.
Well, with unfiltered, apparently. See, anytime someone says something to you, you're supposed to run it through a series of filters in from your own experiences and whatever.
Well,
your own ability to think.
You will.
Now, if you don't have any filters, which is why they want you to stare at television, for instance, because see, when you see a movie or anything like this, in the medium that they like to program with, which is mainly news and television and anything video like that, in order to accept most of the things that they have, from my point of view today, you have to discontinue disbelief. You have to just throw away your disbelief that the horseshit you're watching. Well, and to me, I have a problem with that. See, if you have to totally disregard the fact that what you're seeing is not factual, for one thing.
Well, you don't know that. That's your job.
Well, you don't know that, but if you're seeing something that's been promoted from a monetary point of view, my common sense has taught me anytime you hear somebody telling you something that can make a buck off of you in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's different. That's advertising.
You need to use discernment on that information.
Well, yeah, but again, this is where most people fall when they go, "Oh, well, I know TV. I know TV is deceptive because, well, they're always trying to sell you something." That's the most minor level of understanding what TV does to you. It's not even the TV, the advertising, dude. That's what people always say immediately, even the internet. Oh, the advertising, I get it. They're trying to advertise to me, whatever. Yeah, sure. It's not that problem. That's not even the problem. That's just one level of what they're doing to you with it. The other levels
that's just the one level for the vultures out there.
The next, well, that's the level they want you to think it's all about. That's my point. They're getting you focused on the idea.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
They want you to think it's all just marketing. Well, because they don't want you to realize that ultimately they're training you how to view the world. That's what they're actually doing. They're teaching you how to view the world from a certain perspective. That's why the guy jumps in and says what he says, because he assumed, oh, I get what you are. You don't realize that I mean, this is how bad this was. He literally must have thought, I had no idea that oil was apparently really horrible because it burns off a terrible gas called carbon dioxide. And therefore, that carbon dioxide, it's already been, again, it's built into the equation. You know that is up in the atmosphere now and is causing this big greenhouse gas thing. You don't know this. That's why you should go to NASA's website, check out the stuff on global warming, and you'll be just fine as soon as you do that, sir. Thank you. That's
the whole thing about information, Jason, no matter where you get it from. When I say consider the source, I look at it this way. I've been a spiritual person looking for the real God all my life. When I realized that most of these people that are trying to, quote, inform you to something you're looking for, no matter how you're receiving it, TV or personal or whatever, they usually have an ulterior motive. And that motive doesn't have anything to do with your enlightenment. Now, I know that sounds negative as
Well, no,
shit,
of course it doesn't. I mean,
but it really does. It's really a very profound truth.
But Dad,
And
here's the
most people would rather feed you a line of shit than level with you on any subject.
you know what you're building into the equation as an assumption. You're building in the equation that people even think about enlightenment. I mean, it's not even something people even come across. I mean, it's not like
that's giving them credit for even having that kind of thinking ability.
Well, they're not doing that. Now, you think people walk around every day thinking about what they're going to get enlightened by?
The average guy on the street, no.
Well, that's just pretty much everybody.
That makes them very malleable and lead it. They're sheep.
People literally, Dad, are just going around collecting money for resources, if you want to call it that. Most of the time, not even resources, because they're wasting their money on things they didn't need. But it is give them some credit. All they're really doing is going out there working, spending their time, their energy, getting currency back in exchange. They're not going, hey, wait, as I watch this program, I'm not gaining much enlightenment here. Let me find something that's going to enlighten me.
Well, there's your whole issue, Jason. A person has to have a goal of what they're trying to accomplish. And to me, like you say, some people, when you talk about a goal, it doesn't have to be something that means I'm gonna make money doing it. Oh. Yeah, when you're in the monetary game like you are as a younger man and I was when I was a younger man, before I got on this fixed socialistic, might as well call it socialism, I got a fixed income. It's always there, right? I'm not physically working for it any longer. So what it did, it freed me up for a different kind of looking at things, a different way of processing them, really. Because when I know that most everything out there in my whole life, no matter where it came from, where it was anybody that was theologian or business or no matter what it was, everybody had a fucking ulterior motive. Everybody had an angle, if you want to use that term.
Yeah, I mean, it's because...
And when you run across the very few people who don't really have angles other than maybe let's get the job done or let's just try to come to some sort of understanding for the harmony that it will create. See, it depends on what your goals are. Most people don't realize that happiness is not something that just happens. It's something you have to actually seek. And everything is an effort. I mean, you know what I mean? If you wake up in the morning and you don't feel good, you can still say, well, I don't feel good today, but I'm going to have a positive day because I'm going to enjoy this day at least as well as I can, even though I may be sick or whatever. Well, that takes I guess what I'm saying is there's so many fundamentals that I've discovered over my life that had I known these fundamentals early on, it would have made a world of difference. And
well, again, this is the idea of
life. That's the shoulda, coulda, woulda looking back or something.
The whole point of this society is you're not going to know life skills. I mean, no one walks away. No one comes in this reality being taught life skills and trying to achieve like kind of a growth. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's like for the most part, people are just led around, dude. I mean, there's no real, and the problem is too, even people who are switched on, which I find myself to be pretty switched on a lot of subjects, I still have to go within this paradigm to get resources. So even though I might be aware of a lot of things, I still got to go about my day-to-day life doing a lot of the same activities, even if as I'm doing those activities, I have a totally different vantage point of what this all means in the end to me versus what somebody else is going, wow, this is the highest achievement we've ever had as humanity. Whereas I can say, I can definitely not guarantee prove, but I would probably not be on a limb if I said, we definitely are at the highest level we've ever been. In fact, chances are we probably were at a way higher level in the past prior to like a major earth event or something else that brought us back down to the bottom.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. It was done through our own bad decisions or done to us by someone who deliberately wanted us to only achieve a certain amount of knowledge.
Well, at the end of the day, Dad,
And that in itself is the so-called NWO. That's their whole point of view.
yeah, but
They
even,
want you to be smart enough to perform a certain task that benefits them mostly,
well, this
but
system.
not smart enough to question why you're doing that particular task.
Well, no, the system itself that's in place. I mean, it's been long gone created, foregone conclusion that you're just in it trying to obtain resources at best. If you want to be any positive within it, that's the only positive you have. You're exchanging time and energy trying to get resources. If you're on your own, not playing the game, good on you. I mean, basically, this system's in place. It ain't going nowhere anytime soon. A catastrophic Earth event could possibly be about the only way you would see it go away temporarily. But the whole thing is something else is going to have to come into place. Something's going to form again, whatever that might be, whether it be these powers are somehow surviving a major catastrophe because they planned properly and they got a bunch of seeds, whatever, I don't know. But the point is these things aren't going anywhere. It ain't going anywhere within physical reality right now. But I do think the powers that are beyond the perceived powers that be who think they're all God, which they're not. We know that. I mean, there's so many things outside their control. It probably makes them very upset. The people who would love to have total power of all levels, not just controlling you, but controlling nature and everything, right? These guys want to control everything. They're not doing it, though, but they want to at least give you that perception that they can, and they will.
Well,
they will eventually do it.
Hold that thought just 1 second. I forgot something.
No sweat. I'm going to look at something really quick, too.
I put my, go ahead. I was making sure I had put my my oven on, what do you call it, clean cycle.
I'm going to actually right now, with 12 minutes to go, I'm going to go and kill this recording right now.